Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about my week number 17 defenses to stream for fantasy football in 2021. Inside today's video, we're going to be going in depth into 5 different defenses that I believe you guys should be looking to pick up off the waiver wire right now based upon their matchups on the week. But before we could get on into things, I would like to ask, if you are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, to please make sure that you do hit that subscribe button down below, because not only is it free, I put out content every single day to help you guys win your 2021 Fantasy Football Championship. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure to hit that like button down below to help boost this video up the algorithm so that more beautiful people like yourself can see today's video. I would also like to ask, if you guys are on Twitter and would like to follow me on there, to please do so at Notorious FNTSY. The link to my Twitter is also down below in the video description. So without further ado, let's get into my week number 17 defenses to stream. We begin with my number 1 defense to stream on the week, and that is the Chicago Bears going up against the New York Football Giants this week at home in Chicago. Right now, the Chicago Bears defense is being rostered in 15.6% of leagues on NFL.com. So if you play on ESPN, if you play on CBS, Yahoo, any of those other fantasy football platforms, then the roster percentage is going to be slightly different for the Bears defense, as well as the other defenses that I discuss in today's video. Last week, the Chicago Bears defense went up against the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle in what could be described as a winter wonderland game. There was a lot of snow, especially early on in the game. Later on in the game, it did not keep snowing, but there was still snow on the ground, which is my favorite way to watch football. Obviously not the most ideal for the passers in that game, because it was snowing really hard at the beginning, but still the most fun to watch in my opinion. In that game, the Bears defense had 2 sacks as well as 24 points allowed. Those 24 points came because DK Metcalf was actually throwing the fucking football. What a shocker, Russell Wilson, to realize that, hey, if I throw the ball to DK Metcalf, maybe great things are going to happen. Now, this video doesn't really have much to do with Seattle, other than the fact that the Bears played Seattle last week, but I just find it very funny that Russell Wilson, it took him all this time to realize that, hey, maybe I should give the ball to DK Metcalf. This week, though, the Bears are going up against the Giants, so we look back to last week to see who the Giants went up against, and the Eagles defense up against the Giants in Philadelphia. They had 2 sacks, 2 INTs, 1 touchdown, and 10 points allowed. To me, it doesn't matter at all who the starting quarterback is of the Giants. Could be Jake Fromm, could be Mike Glennon. I don't think it's going to be Daniel Jones. It could be Johnny Manziel, because Johnny Manziel was being asked on Twitter if he would go ahead and join the Giants for the last 2 games, and the guy said, fuck no, it's too cold to get my ass beat there. So you kind of could understand that if you're Johnny Manziel, but the New York Football Giants offense is so bad. It's so bad, again, if it's Glennon, if it ends up being Jake Fromm. This seems like the game where the Chicago Bears defense looks like the vintage Bears defense of a couple of years ago, where they were one of the best defenses in the NFL. Again, the Giants offense is just so bad that it should be very easy for the Bears defense to get all over them in this game. I expect the Chicago Bears to be one of the best defenses on the week. So the Chicago Bears up against the Giants are my number 1 defense to stream on the week. Next up, we move to the Cleveland Browns going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh this week. The Browns defense is currently being rostered in 19.4% of leagues on NFL.com. Again, Yahoo, ESPN, CBS, any of those other fantasy football platforms, then the roster percentage is going to be different. So the Browns went up against the Green Bay Packers in Green Bay on Christmas, and things didn't go too well for them. They didn't have a sack, an interception, fumble, anything in that game. They just had 24 points allowed, but there's a big difference. There is a humongous difference in playing the Green Bay Packers than when compared to playing the Pittsburgh Steelers, especially the Steelers team of this season, because they are not very good at all. In week number 16, the Chiefs went up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. In that game, they had 2 sacks, 1 INT, 2 fumble recoveries, and 10 points allowed. The Kansas City Chiefs defense was all over Big Ben Roethlisberger all game long. The offense couldn't really do anything until the end of the game when they got that garbage time touchdown. The Browns defense is far from an ideal defense, but it's all about the matchup when you're streaming defenses in fantasy football. The Browns defense is a little bit better than some people give them credit for, and the Steelers offense is just complete and utter dog shit. Big Ben really seems like he has just lost all semblance difference of what he was over the last couple of years. Last year, you could see that the decline was coming, but he still wasn't this bad. This year, it has been evident that this guy needs to hang up the cleats. He needs to retire. This week, the Browns defense should be able to be all over Big Ben, just like the Chiefs were last week, and I expect the Pittsburgh Steelers offense to struggle mightily here with the Cleveland Browns. This is also, in my opinion, going to be a very low-scoring game between two division rivals, so the Browns defense should be able to get it done for fantasy football. Next up, we move to the Philadelphia Eagles going up against the Washington football team this week in Washington. The Eagles defense is currently being rostered in 29.1% of leagues. Again, I will reiterate how good the Eagles did up against the Giants. I understand that I already read the stats off for the Bears because they're playing up against the Giants this week, but I'd like to reiterate it because the Eagles defense was on fire up against the New York Football Giants. They had 2 sacks, 2 INTs, 1 touchdown, and 10 points allowed. Now, I understand you might want to make the argument that, hey, Nick, while the Washington football team offense is bad, it can't be as bad as the Giants, and maybe that's a true argument that you want to make, but at this point, based upon what we saw just yesterday up against the Dallas Cowboys, my confidence in the Eagles defense is sky high. The Cowboys up against the Washington football team, not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5 sacks, 2 interceptions, 2 fucking touchdowns, and 14 points allowed up against the Washington football team. I think Taylor Heinicke will start in this game, and he'll definitely play a little bit better than he played last week, but this Washington football team offense is bad. It's bad. Terry McLaurin hasn't been doing much down this deep stretch of the season. I understand that the quarterback play hasn't been amazing, so you can't really completely blame Terry McLaurin. Antonio Gibson clearly banged up once they were out of potential of winning the game. They kind of just benched him to make sure that he didn't get hurt anymore. This is just a bad offense with a pretty solid defense in the Philadelphia Eagles going up against them. Again, these first 3 defenses to me have been basically no-brainers in my opinion. The Bears going up against the Giants, that's a smash matchup. The Browns defense up against the Steelers, who look like they have no idea what the fuck they're doing on offense. And then the Eagles going up against the Washington football team, who just got their back blown out on prime time. It just seems obvious that the Eagles defense is going to dominate, and they dominated last week, giving me even more confidence in them this week up against another division rival in the Washington football team. But before we move on to the next defense, I would like to ask, if you have ended up enjoying thus far, to please make sure that you do hit that like button down below, as well as hitting that subscribe button. I would appreciate it a ton. So the next defense to discuss in today's video is the San Francisco 49ers going up against the Houston Texans this week. The 49ers defense is rostered in significantly more leagues when compared to the first 3 defenses. Again, the Bears 15.6% roster percentage, 19.4 for the Browns, 29.1 for the Philadelphia Eagles. So the San Francisco 49ers are currently being rostered in 62.8% of leagues, and last week they definitely disappointed up against the Tennessee Titans in Tennessee. This 49ers defense was really starting to hit its stride going into that game, and the Tennessee Titans offense was starting to look a little bit limp dick in my opinion. So I was like, you know what, the 49ers, they're going to play well in this game. They had 4 sacks, 20 points allowed, so they definitely didn't shit the bed in terms of fantasy football, but they didn't put up the big numbers that I'm sure a lot of you guys expected if you started the San Francisco 49ers. Now, last week, a lot of people were also excited to start the LA Chargers up against the Houston Texans in Houston. Now, I understood that Davis Money Mills, was actually looking pretty good, but with Brandon Cooks not being there, I was like, you know what? The Houston Texans offense probably won't be able to get it done. I understand the LA Chargers defense isn't amazing, but up against the Houston Texans, I was being honest with you guys, I really did think that the Chargers defense would be pretty solid. In reality, they had 1 sack and 35 points allowed. They got absolutely fucking butt-fucked in this matchup without the use of lube, without the use, even the common courtesy of spitting before getting raw-dogged into that was just a terrible game for the Chargers. Justin Herbert didn't play well at all, and the Chargers defense got eviscerated by the Houston Texans. But I think the San Francisco 49ers defense is definitely better than the LA Chargers defense, and I also think that the Houston Texans are riding sky high. They are at their peak. They are so excited. They just won this game. The 49ers are coming off of a loss. The 49ers certainly aren't going to choke up against the Houston Texans. I am a little bit worried that Davis Mills genuinely looks pretty fucking good. I understand that I make fun of this guy all the time for having a huge neck, and it's true, but maybe that huge neck gives him extra powers to play well in these very important matchups. I understand the Houston Texans aren't going to make the playoffs, but maybe Davis Mills earned the right to be the starting quarterback next season. So that's very interesting to kind of follow as we get closer to the 2022 NFL Draft. Again, I think the 49ers defense is better than the Chargers, thus they will play better up against the Houston Texans, but the fact that Davis Mills looks a little bit better as of recently, looks pretty solid as of recently, especially in that game up against the LA Chargers, does worry me a little bit, and that is why I have them ranked as my 4th best defense to be streaming on the week. Final defense to discuss is actually a team we talked about previously, and that is the Pittsburgh Steelers going up against the Cleveland Browns. The Steelers defense is currently being rostered in 58.2% of leagues. The Steelers went up against the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City last week. They got 2 sacks and 36 points allowed. That was a game where they just got destroyed on both sides of the ball. The offense couldn't do shit up against the Kansas City Chiefs, and the defense was getting pounded even without Travis Kelce in that game, even with Tyreek Hill not having a good game at all. The offense did play phenomenally in that game. So the Steelers obviously didn't play well defensively, but going up against the Cleveland Browns, who played like shit on offense, Baker Mayfield looks atrocious. He got sacked 5 times in that game. He threw 4 interceptions up against the Green Bay Packers last week, and the team scored just 22 points in that game. I understand that Nick Chubb has the potential to run for 2-3 touchdowns in every single matchup, but the Steelers' defense isn't atrocious. And with how bad the Browns offense looks, I honestly think the Pittsburgh Steelers could honestly play really well this week on defense, especially since I believe, like we talked about when we talked about the Browns defense, that this has the potential to be a very low-scoring game, a snail race of sorts, where the game finishes like 17-10 or 13-10. I'm not even too sure who's going to win because both of these teams suck complete and utter donkey cock at this point in the season, but I do believe it's going to be low-scoring, and that will really help the defenses out a ton. So thank you guys all so much for watching today's video. If you did end up enjoying, please make sure to hit that like button as well as that subscribe button. If I missed on a defense that you want to be picking up, please let me know down below in the comment section. I would love to chat with you guys about the other defenses, especially if you are in a smaller league. Maybe you're at an 8, a 10 team league, then obviously there may be some better defenses available than I listed in today's video. So thank you guys again so much for watching. I love you guys. I hope you had a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. To all you guys, I love you guys all. And as always, guys, make sure you have a great rest of your guys' day. Goodbye.